It's my George Harrison studio albums ranking. Ahoy, hi everybody, and welcome to another albums ranking. As promised, when I purchased this box set a couple of months ago, I said then I will do a ranking of his albums when I've gone through them all. I've gone through them all, so here is my ranking. So yes, this is purely my opinion. If you don't agree, great. You don't need to have a go at me for it. But this is how I like the albums. So yes, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 studio albums. I am including the two, whatever you want to call them, experimental albums, Electronic Sounds and Wonderwall Music. I am including those in the list. I know some people don't when they do rank these albums, but if they're in the box set, they're studio albums, so they count for me. So yes, without any further ado, starting with my least favourite, working my way up to my favourite. And my least favourite, and this is probably no surprise to anyone, is Electronic Sounds. It's okay. So it's two sidelong pieces of music. Of the two, Under the Mersey Wall is sort of the more listenable of the two. But both of them, you know, they're sort of just background listening. So I've got my notes down in a little book here, that's why I'm glancing down. Yeah, they're both sort of just, you know, background listening. It's not the sort of album that I would think, oh, you know what I really fancy listening to are loads of electronic bleeps and bloops. But I don't dislike it, you know, as I say, stick it on in the background. It's a pleasant enough way to pass 40 minutes or however long it is. But yes, my least favourite George Harrison's album is Electronic Sounds. So next, and again, it's probably no surprise, but I will say there's quite a big leap up to this album. It's Wonderwall Music. So, in my head, most of these albums I've previously only listened to once before when I bought the CD box sets. And in my head, I sort of lumped this with Electronic Sounds as being electronic music, but it's not at all. So it is George's soundtrack for the film Wonderwall, and it is a mixture of Indian music and basically 60s psych, rock, pop music. It's enjoyable. It's just nothing overly memorable on there. But, you know, this is an album I would happily stick on and listen to as an album, as opposed to just a piece of background music. So yes, although it is my 11th favourite George Harrison album, I do enjoy it as an album quite considerably. If you're interested, Electronic Sounds I gave 4.5 out of 10. This I gave 6. Okay, then next, and I think the next two I've got are sort of widely considered the least of his solo albums. I've got Extra Texture, which I also gave 6. My general vibe with this album was it was good, but there's sort of no real standout tracks. There's nothing terrible on it, you know, it's a perfectly enjoyable, listenable album, but nothing stood out as being great. So yeah, I just sort of gave it 6 out of 10. And then he's Gone Troppo, which was actually sort of better than I remembered. I think I've sort of got, you know, heard the criticism of the album and let that go into my head, and it's not really that bad. I've given it 6.5, and I mean, overall, it's just decent songs, but nothing great. Side 1 is better than side 2. His cover of I Really Love You, that's fun. And Circles, which ends the album, is strong, but it's let down slightly by the production. The earlier version that I can't remember where I've got an earlier version of it from. Whether it's a bootleg, whether it's a Beatles era outtake. I can't remember, but I know it's a song that I've known for a long time. And I think it works better the earlier version I've got, wherever that's from. But yeah, better than I remembered and better than Reputation, but still far from his best album. With 6.5 out of 10. Gone Troppo. And the next 3 or 4 albums, they're all much of a muchness for me. You know, they could quite easily chop and change order. The next 3 anyway, I've given them all 7 out of 10. But next I've gone for Dark Horse. It's a decent enough album, consistently good. It's just really lacking much great. Ding Dong Ding Dong is the best track on there. Dark Horse is a really strong song, but his voice is buggered on it, which ruins it to an extent. And yeah, everything else is, as I say, is good, but doesn't really stand out. So yeah, next up is Dark Horse. And then I've gone for the self-titled George Harrison. Again, it's another decent set of songs. Not Guilty's a great song, but I prefer the Beatles era version. Here Comes the Moon's very good. Faster's a strong song. The rest of them are just good. You know, as I said, it's, you know, another decent enough album. So it's got an extra standout track than Dark Horse, so that's why I've placed it just above. Next is Somewhere in England. So again, a 7 out of 10 album for me. First side is very good, especially all those years ago, which is great. Second side is not as strong, but it's still good. And Save the World is very good on that. So I think overall it's just slightly better songs throughout, with 2 real standout tracks. So sort of one less standout track from George Harrison for me. But the overall quality of the songs is slightly better than that album. So that's why I've put this above the self-titled. Then, with an extra half a point, so 7.5 out of 10, I've gone for 33 1/3. So it's basically just a better set of songs from the previous 3 albums. This song and Crackerbox Palace are sort of real highlights. This song in particular is great. Crackerbox Palace is very strong as well. But yeah, it's just overall a better set of songs than the previous 3, but only slightly, which is why it's 7.5 out of 10 as opposed to the 7 for them. And then we move on to the quality. First up, so in 4th place, I've gone for CloudNine. This album takes a while to get going for me. It opens with the title track, which is okay, but it's not great. Then the next 2 tracks... the next 3 tracks, That's What It Takes, Fish on the Sand, and Just for Today, sort of wash over me quite a bit. It's very 80s sounding, and that's to its detriment, unfortunately. You know, some 80s sounding albums don't bother me, but this one just doesn't quite gel. Up until This Is Love, which is a great track. I remember you got This Is Love going into When We Was Fab, and then side 2 opening with Devil's Radio. That's 3 great tracks. Someplace Else, the slower tracks on here aren't great, apart from Breath Away from Heaven, which it's not magnificent, but it's sort of better than the rest. But Wreck of a Hesperus I really enjoyed, and of course the cover of Got My Mind Set on You I never tire of. I know some people do, but I never tire of. So overall strong. It just takes a little while to get going. I gave it 8 out of 10. So next was the only album I'd never heard before, which was Brainwashed. And I really enjoyed it. It doesn't really have any standout songs, but just the overall quality of songs throughout is better than well, anything that I've ranked below it, basically, for consistent quality of songs. Production on it's really good. It hasn't dated at all. Whether it's just because it's from an era of music that is my sort of era of music, so it's a production style that I really like, or whether it has just not aged really. But either way, for me anyway, with production on it, still stands strong today. As I say, just overall good quality songs throughout. Nothing outstanding, but enough strength in the material for it also to be 8 out of 10, and because of the production quality, that sort of pushed it above CloudNine. The top two are probably no shock to anyone. Just checking my notes before I... So, also an 8 out of 10, but very nearly an 8.5. We've got Living in the Material World. My only sort of real gripe and what pushed it down to an 8 rather than 8.5 is there's just too many slower songs on this album. There's some real highlights. Give Me Love, Give Me Peace on Earth, Sue Me, Sue You Blues, the title track, and Try Some, Buy Some. I really love. You know, they're all probably 10 out of 10 songs for me. But it's just, all the slower songs just really drive it down a little bit. But it's still his second best album. And of course, my favourite is All Things Must Pass. It's not a perfect album. I've given it 9 out of 10. The Apple Jams, obviously, aren't necessary. I don't mind them, and you know, I quite happily listen to them. And I'm glad they're sort of a separate disc, not interspersed in the album. But it does, you know, at the end of the day, they are part of the album, so they do need to be considered. So, you know, it loses basically that point for that. I'm also, did I write it down? Yeah, behind that locked door, I really didn't like very much at all. It's a bit too country for me. But I mean, side 1 of this is perfect. Side 3 is perfect, and side 4 is perfect. It's only really that one track on side 2, and then the Apple Jams that stop this being a perfect album. But yes, my number 1 George Harrison album, of course, is All Things Must Pass. Okay, hope you found that interesting. As I said at the start, if you disagree, fine, and I'm happy to, you know, see your lists and see where we differ, but I really don't want abuse for liking albums that you like more or less, and so on and so forth, you know. Just be normal, be human about things. Don't be a dick. That's what I'm saying. But thank you for watching. Like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you in another video. Thanks. Bye.